Lily grew up as an outsider in the pack. Orphaned at a young age, she never truly knew what it felt like to belong. Her parents had died during a rogue attack when she was just a child, leaving her in the care of distant relatives who saw her more as a burden than family. While others in the pack grew up surrounded by affection, Lily was raised with cold stares and whispered remarks about being the unlucky one. Despite this, Lily was not bitter. She worked harder than most, doing chores, tending to the pack house, and caring for others whenever she could. Her hands were rough from labor, but her heart remained soft. What she lacked in status or family prestige, she carried in kindness and resilience. Yet, deep inside, Lily longed for something more. At night, she would often sit beneath the stars, whispering her secret wish, to be loved. Not because of obligation or pity, but truly loved, seen for who she was, and not judged by what she lacked. Among the pack, hierarchy ruled everything. The Alpha commanded power, the Betas enforced order, and the Omegas were expected to obey silently. Lily didn't quite fit in any of those roles. She was neither dominant nor submissive, neither respected nor completely ignored. She existed in the in-between, trying to carve out a place in a world that often overlooked her. Her dream? A mate who would see her not as a servant or a conquest, but as a partner. She craved a love that would protect her, cherish her, and value her dreams. But little did Lily know, her heart's wish would lead her into a storm, one where lies, betrayal, and hidden strength would test everything she believed about love. Life in the pack was built on hierarchy. Every wolf knew their place, and stepping out of it could cost everything. At the top stood the Alpha Kale. His very name made hearts tremble. He was admired for his strength, feared for his temper, and respected for the ruthless way he enforced order. To challenge him was unthinkable. Those who tried either disappeared or returned broken. Pack members spoke of him with reverence, yet when he passed by, their heads dipped low more out of fear than loyalty. To many, he was untouchable, almost godlike. Below him were the Betas, his loyal enforcers. They carried out his commands without question, and often reminded others where they stood in the chain of command. Their loyalty was rewarded with privilege, but it was also a chain. Their power existed only because Kale allowed it. Then came the rest of the pack. Warriors, hunters, caretakers, healers, each with their place, each aware of their value. Status meant everything. Bloodline, strength, and the Alpha's favor determined whether one lived in comfort or in constant struggle. At the very bottom were the Omegas, the overlooked, the quiet, the ones seen as weak. They were tolerated but never respected. Their purpose was simple: serve, submit, and survive. To most, Omegas were invisible, necessary but never worth admiration. It was within this system that Lily found herself existing. Though not technically an Omega, she was treated little better than one. She had no family name to protect her, no rank to shield her. She was the girl everyone forgot, except when they needed someone to clean, serve, or sacrifice. Yet among the Omegas lived Sam, quiet, humble, and unnoticed. He did not seek power or attention, and because of that, most dismissed him. To the pack, Sam was just another shadow. But destiny had written a truth no one yet saw. In his silence lay strength greater than any Alpha's roar. For now, however, the balance of power was clear. Kale, the Alpha, commanded every gaze, while Sam, the Omega, slipped unseen in the background. The night air was heavy with anticipation. A feast had been called, one of those rare evenings when the entire pack gathered under torchlight, the drums echoing through the clearing. For Lily, it was one of the few moments she was allowed to stand among them, though always at the edge, unnoticed. And then he arrived. Kyle, the Alpha. He moved like a storm contained in human form, tall, broad-shouldered, every step purposeful. His dark eyes seemed to carry fire, yet his smile was dazzling enough to disarm anyone it landed upon. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Every gaze followed him, as though the world itself bent around his presence. Lily's breath caught in her chest. She had seen him before at a distance, but never like this. Never close enough to feel the power radiating off him. He laughed loudly, boldly, as though the night belonged to him, and for a moment, she understood why so many adored him. His confidence was magnetic, his charm undeniable. When his gaze swept the crowd, women lowered their lashes shyly, men straightened with pride, and even children clutched their mother's hands as if sensing his strength. He was the dream every young wolf had been raised to admire. Fearless, commanding, perfect. And for one heart-stopping second, his eyes landed on her. Lily froze. She wasn't ready for the way her stomach fluttered, or how heat rushed to her face. She told herself it was nothing, just a trick of chance that he had noticed her at all. Surely he was only looking past her. But then, he smiled. Not the bold, confident grin he gave the pack, but something quieter, something meant for her. Her heart stumbled. For the first time in her life, Lily felt seen. She told herself not to dream, not to hope. The alpha was perfection itself, and she was nothing more than a shadow at the edge of the pack. Yet, as his laughter carried through the night and his smile lingered in her mind, Lily couldn't silence the thought that maybe, just maybe, her story was about to change. After the feast, the village buzzed with stories, fragments of conversations that slipped into Lily's ears like threads she couldn't ignore. Everyone admired the alpha. Everyone desired him. But beneath the surface, there was something else too. Something sharp, edged with unease. "Kale doesn't ask," one woman whispered to another as they passed by. Their voices were hushed, but Lily caught the words. "He takes what he wants. Always." A younger wolf giggled nervously. "But who would ever say no to him? He's the alpha." Lily pretended not to listen, but the words stayed. That night, while she worked alone in the kitchens, she overheard the hunters speaking as they drank. "He had Marin last moon," one of them bragged, laughter spilling over his mug. "And before her, Sierra, always smiling after, like they'd been chosen by the moon itself." "Chosen?" Another scoffed. "More like claimed. Doesn't matter if they wanted it or not. Who dares refuse the alpha?" The others laughed, but not kindly. It was the laughter of men who knew power and knew fear. Lily's hands tightened around the cloth she was wringing. She didn't want to believe it, not after the way Kale's eyes had found hers, not after the smile that had made her heart flutter. Surely the rumors were exaggerations, bitter words from those who envied him. Yet as she lay awake that night, the whispers wouldn't leave her. The picture of the alpha, perfect, radiant, untouchable, now carried shadows. A man admired by all, a man feared by many, a man who never heard the word no. And somewhere in the quiet of her heart, Lily wondered, if his eyes found hers again, would she even have the choice to refuse? The marketplace was nearly empty when Lily lingered to finish her errands. Most had already gone home, the lanterns dimming, the chatter fading into silence. She carried a basket too heavy for her arms, its edge biting into her palms. She stumbled slightly on the uneven stones. Before she could steady herself, a hand reached out and caught the basket before it tipped. "Careful," a calm voice said. Lily looked up and saw him. Not a face she knew. Not one of the warriors. Not a man who walked with the swagger of rank. He looked ordinary. His clothes were plain, his hair a little tousled, his eyes gentle. "Thank you," Lily murmured, embarrassed. He smiled faintly, not the dazzling, confident kind she had seen from the alpha, but something quieter. Warmth, not fire. "It's nothing. Let me help." Before she could protest, he lifted the basket with ease, walking beside her as though it was the most natural thing in the world. Unlike others in the pack, he didn't stare at her too long, didn't weigh her with judgment. He asked no questions of who she was or why she walked alone. Instead, he spoke of small things, how the night smelled of pine, how the lanterns flickered like fireflies, how hard work often went unseen but mattered most. Lily found herself smiling, even laughing once, though she quickly covered it. It felt different. Not dazzling or overwhelming. Just safe. When they reached the kitchens, he set the basket down and gave a small nod. Take care of yourself, Lily. Her heart caught at the sound of her name. Do I know you? She asked softly. His smile deepened, though it carried a mystery. Not yet. And then, as swiftly as he had appeared, he slipped into the night. Lily stood there, staring after him, a strange warmth blooming in her chest. She didn't even know his name, only the kindness of a man who carried no rank, no power. Or so she thought. Life in the pack shifted the day Kyle, the alpha, looked at Lily differently. It began with small things, a trinket left on her doorstep, a silver brooch shaped like a wolf's fang. Then, a cloak of soft fur presented to her during morning duties, warmer and finer than anything she had ever owned. She tried to refuse, but the messenger only bowed and said, "The alpha insists." Soon, whispers grew louder. "Why her?" women muttered as she passed. Some sneered, some stared with envy, others with fear. To be chosen by the alpha was both an honor and a warning. Kale made no secret of his attention. In the training yard, his eyes lingered on her longer than necessary. At the feasts, he called her forward, pouring her wine himself while others watched with bated breath. He brushed her hand lightly, deliberately, and the whole hall froze in envy. "Tell me, Lily," he said one evening, his voice smooth, a weapon wrapped in velvet. "Do you like the gifts I send you?" Her throat tightened. "They're too much, Alpha." He chuckled, leaning closer so only she could hear. "Nothing is too much for what I want." Her heart thudded, not from affection, but from the weight of his gaze. His smile was perfect, his confidence unshakable, and everyone around her saw only the glamour of it. Women sighed, men admired, children whispered that she was the luckiest of all. But deep inside, Lily felt the unease of a bird caught in a gilded cage. The world envied her, yet no one asked if she wanted to be envied. Kale, the alpha, knew how to weave words like silk. One evening, beneath the glow of the bonfire where the pack gathered, he pulled Lily aside. His presence wrapped around her like a storm, too strong to resist, too dangerous to escape. "Lily," he said, lowering his voice so it was meant for her alone, though she knew eyes watched from the shadows. "You are unlike any woman I've known, strong, pure, untamed." Her chest tightened at the intensity in his gaze. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that someone as powerful as Kale could truly see her. "I will make you my mate," he whispered, his tone almost reverent. "Not just a plaything, not just another conquest. My mate, my equal. You'll stand at my side before the whole pack." Her heart skipped, confusion battling with hope. The words were everything she had once dreamed of: love, acceptance, belonging, the promise of never being alone again. But deep inside, there was a shadow that unsettled her. His touch was possessive, his hand gripping her wrist as if testing ownership rather than offering comfort. And yet, when she glanced at the crowd behind them, she saw admiration and jealousy flickering in every eye. The pack already believed the alpha's vow was a blessing beyond measure. "Do you trust me, Lily?" Kyle asked, his voice softer now, almost coaxing. She nodded weakly, though doubt gnawed at her. Because when the alpha made promises, no one dared to question if he ever meant them. The next morning, whispers trailed after Lily like shadows. Wherever she went, fetching water from the stream, tending to her chores, passing through the marketplace, eyes followed, voices hushed, and then laughter echoed. By the well, a group of pack women gathered, their smiles sharp as knives wrapped in silk. "You're so lucky, Lily," one said, her tone dripping with envy. "The alpha never notices anyone for long, and now he's promised to make you his mate?" Another woman leaned closer, lowering her voice though every word was meant to sting. "Don't ruin this, Lily. Any of us would give anything to be in your place." The chorus of voices swelled around her. "Do you know what it means to stand beside him? You'll be respected, protected forever. Don't be foolish. Don't anger him." Lily forced a smile, though her hands trembled as she clutched the bucket. Their words felt like a cage slowly closing in. One woman tilted her head with mock sweetness. "You wouldn't want to embarrass him, would you? Rejecting the alpha. People have paid dearly for less." Her throat tightened. It wasn't just expectation, it was warning. To deny Kyle wasn't an option. To hesitate was to invite scorn. Or worse. As the women drifted away, Lily's chest ached. Their words weren't meant to comfort. They were chains disguised as advice. She sank onto a bench, her heart heavy with dread. Somewhere deep inside, she wished for just one voice that didn't demand, didn't envy, didn't threaten, just someone who would see her. And though she didn't yet realize it, that voice had already spoken to her once. Softly, humbly, from a man no one else noticed. Kale's smile was honey, but his eyes were iron. "Lily," he said one evening as the pack gathered around the fire, "I want to speak with you. Alone." Gasps rippled through the circle. Women glanced at each other, some with envy, some with malice. Men smirked knowingly. No one ever said no to the alpha. Lily's heart thudded in her chest. She opened her mouth to protest, but Kale's hand brushed hers, warm, commanding, unyielding. "I only want to talk," he said smoothly, his voice wrapping around her like silk. "Don't you trust me?" The words disarmed her. He looked so sure, so powerful, and yet tender in that moment. For a fleeting heartbeat, she almost believed him. He leaned closer, whispering just for her. "The others don't understand. They gossip, they twist things. But you're different. You're the one I've been waiting for." Her cheeks flushed. The promise in his tone was intoxicating, laced with charm. She wanted to believe she was special, that maybe, just maybe, his reputation wasn't the whole truth. "Come with me," he urged, his hand resting lightly on her elbow. "Let me show you that I mean what I say." The pack looked on with eager eyes. To refuse him here, in front of everyone, would be an insult. Her throat tightened. She nodded faintly, more out of fear than desire. Kale's smirk was quick, almost invisible, but it reached his eyes. And so Lily followed him, step by step into the shadows, into his quarters where no one would see. She told herself it was love, that maybe fate had chosen her. But deep down, something in her soul whispered otherwise. This wasn't love. This was a snare. The room was warm, lit by the soft flicker of firelight. Shadows swayed across the walls like watchful spirits. Kale closed the door behind them, and the sound of the latch falling into place echoed in Lily's chest like a drumbeat of finality. "Sit," he said gently, almost too gently, pointing toward the edge of his wide bed. Lily hesitated. The bed was a symbol she couldn't ignore. It was where he brought women, where whispers of conquests were born. But when she looked up, Kale's eyes caught hers, sharp yet tender, full of promises she desperately wanted to believe. "You're trembling," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Don't be afraid. I would never hurt you." Her heart ached at the sweetness in his tone. This was what she had dreamed of. Someone seeing her, choosing her above all others. For a fleeting moment, she thought perhaps the rumors were wrong. Perhaps this was love. Kale leaned closer, his voice like velvet. You are mine, Lily. No one else will protect you, cherish you, lift you higher. Only me." The words wrapped around her like chains disguised as ribbons. She clung to them, blind to the shadow in his smile. As he drew her into his arms, Lily surrendered, not to passion, but to the illusion of belonging, to the fear of saying no. Every touch felt heavy with power, not affection. Every whispered promise rang hollow, yet her heart tried to drown out the truth with hope. When she finally closed her eyes, she told herself it was love. But Cale knew it was victory, and somewhere beyond the walls, unseen, Omega's quiet glow lingered like a distant moon, the only light that would one day reveal the truth. The first rays of dawn crept through the cracks of the Alpha's chamber. Lily stirred, her heart tender with fragile hope. The night had left her torn between doubt and longing, but she clung to one thought. Perhaps this was the beginning of love. She rose quietly, gathering her dress, her cheeks still flushed with dreams of belonging. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she was not just the orphan girl, but Cale's chosen mate. Then she heard voices, at first muffled, then louder as the Alpha's laughter filled the hall. She stilled, her fingers frozen around the fabric in her hands. "She thought I meant it," Cale scoffed, his tone sharp with arrogance. "One look into her doe eyes and she followed me like a lamb. Too easy." The beta chuckled. "The orphan girl? You've outdone yourself this time. The whole pack will talk." Lily's breath hitched. Her chest tightened as though an invisible hand squeezed her heart. "She'll come running back," Cale continued, pride dripping from every word. "They always do. That's the power of an alpha. No one refuses me, not even her." Their laughter echoed down the corridor like knives. Lily's hands shook violently. The dress slipped from her grip, pooling at her feet. Her face burned, not from shame alone, but from the cruel realization that she was not chosen, not loved. She was a story for their amusement, a conquest to be mocked. Her heart, once filled with fragile dreams, splintered. She wanted to scream, to run, to disappear, but her legs would not move. When she finally forced herself to leave the chamber, she walked like a ghost, every step heavy with humiliation, every whisper of laughter beyond the door piercing deeper than any blade. At that moment, Lily understood. She was never Cale's mate. She was his entertainment. And though she didn't know it yet, the same humiliation that shattered her heart would awaken a quiet strength she never knew she had. The corridors of the pack house seemed longer that morning, every shadow whispering reminders of Cale's laughter. Lily walked aimlessly, clutching her cloak around her as though it could shield her from the cruel sting of his words. Each step echoed with the truth she had tried to deny. It hadn't been love. It had been power, his, not hers. She replayed his promises in her mind. The way he'd touched her cheek, his voice low with words of forever, of destiny. How desperately she had wanted to believe she mattered, that she was chosen, that her lonely nights and silent tears had finally been answered with love. But the morning shattered it all. She saw herself now as Cale saw her. Not a mate, not a partner, but a prize plucked to satisfy his ego. A fragile heart, broken for sport. Her chest ached with humiliation so sharp it stole her breath. How foolish she had been to hope. How foolish to believe that someone like him could see someone like her. Tears burned her eyes, but she swallowed them back, too proud to let the pack see her weep. They would be laughing already, gossip spreading like wildfire. She could almost hear the whispers. The Alpha's toy, the orphan girl who thought she could be his mate. Her hands curled into fists. The pain was unbearable, but beneath it flickered something else. Something quieter. A seed of anger, of defiance. If Cale believed she would crawl back to him, beg for scraps of affection, he was wrong. Yes, her heart was broken. Yes, she had been deceived. but Lily would not let her worth be defined by his arrogance. And though she could not see it yet, somewhere in the shadows, another pair of eyes watched her with quiet devotion, eyes that saw her not as a conquest, but as a soul worthy of love. Lily sat at the edge of the meadow, her knees drawn tight to her chest, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. The pack house buzzed behind her with laughter and gossip, but out here the night was mercifully still. A soft crunch of footsteps on the grass made her stiffen. She expected mockery, another whisper meant to remind her of her shame. Instead, a quiet voice broke the silence. "Are you all right?" She turned. It was Sam, the Omega, the one most ignored, the one whose presence rarely drew notice. His eyes, though, held none of the cruelty she feared, only warmth. Lily looked away quickly. "You shouldn't be here. You'll only get laughed at for talking to me." Sam didn't move closer, but he didn't leave either. He simply sat down a respectful distance away, lowering himself to the grass as though the earth itself had invited him. "I don't care what they say," he murmured, his tone steady, calm. "I just thought you shouldn't be alone." His words were simple, but they settled into her heart like a balm. He didn't try to touch her, didn't ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. He just stayed. The silence stretched between them, yet it wasn't heavy. It was gentle, like a soft blanket over a weary soul. Finally, Lily whispered, "Everyone's laughing at me. I was so foolish." Sam shook his head. "No. Believing in love isn't foolish. Being lied to, that's not your fault." Her throat tightened at his kindness. Cale's mocking voice had torn her apart that morning, but now, under the quiet weight of Sam's presence, her pieces didn't feel so scattered. She dared to glance at him then, and saw something unexpected. Strength, not the loud, domineering kind, but a steady strength that did not waver, even in the face of her brokenness. And though she didn't know it yet, this moment marked the first time Lily's heart began to heal. By the next morning, the whispers had grown into a storm. Every corridor of the pack house, every corner of the training grounds, every gathering at the well, it was all the same. Voices dipped low, followed by smirks and glances in Lily's direction. She thought she was special. Just another conquest. The alpha never mates for real. The words stung sharper than knives. Lily tried to keep her head down as she passed, clutching a basket of herbs for the healer, but the snickers and giggles trailed behind her like shadows she could not shake. Even those who once called her friend avoided her now. Some looked away in pity, others in cruel amusement. To the pack, she was no longer Lily, the hard-working girl who helped heal the wounded pups or cleaned after feasts. She was only the girl the alpha used and discarded. The weight of humiliation pressed on her chest until she could barely breathe. Every time she lifted her gaze, Cale's smug grin seemed to linger in the memory of her mind, fueling the whispers even louder. Still, she endured, silent, small, fragile. But somewhere in the crowd, unseen by others, Sam watched. His jaw tightened at the cruelty. He said nothing yet, but his eyes followed her, steady with quiet promise. "You are not alone." The pack feast was alive with music and laughter. Fire torches burned high, and the smell of roasted meat carried through the night air. Lily stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, clutching a cup of water, wishing she could vanish into the shadows. Then she saw him. Alpha Cale strode into the gathering, his arm draped possessively around a new woman, one of the prettiest daughters of the higher-ranked families. She leaned into him, laughing loudly at every word he said. His hand rested boldly on her waist, the same way it once rested on Lily's. The crowd erupted in admiration. "Look at them," someone whispered. "Perfect pair." Lily's stomach twisted. Perfect. That word haunted her. She had once believed she was perfect to him, too. Cale's eyes caught hers across the fire, and for a brief moment, His smirk deepened. It wasn't affection. It was victory. A silent message. You were nothing more than a game. The laughter, the music, the joy of the feast faded from Lily's ears. All she could hear was the thundering of her own heart and the echo of the Alpha's cruelty. She turned away, blinking back tears, but in that very moment, Sam's gaze found her. Unlike the Alpha, his eyes didn't mock or claim. They understood. And for the first time since her downfall, Lily realized someone truly saw her pain. The days after the feast felt heavier than stones on Lily's shoulders. Wherever she walked, whispers followed. Women giggled behind cupped hands, and men gave her pitying glances. Every step was a reminder of her humiliation. Yet, in the middle of that storm, Sam appeared. Not loudly, not boldly, but with small, steady acts of kindness. When her firewood pile ran low, she found a fresh stack neatly arranged at her door. When her hands ached from endless chores, a pair of gloves, well worn but strong, appeared beside her basket. And when she stumbled carrying water from the stream, Sam was there before she could fall, taking the weight without a word. He never demanded gratitude, never sought her attention. He simply helped. At first, Lily thought it coincidence, but as the days passed, she began to see the truth. Sam noticed her struggles when no one else did. One evening, as the pack gathered for training, she sat alone mending a torn dress. The laughter of others stung her ears, but then Sam quietly sat beside her. He didn't speak of her shame, didn't mention Kyle, didn't push her to smile. Instead, he asked softly, "Do you need better thread?" "I have some." The simplicity of his words unraveled something inside her. Not grand promises, not sweet lies, just kindness. For the first time in weeks, Lily felt a spark of warmth in her chest, small but real. Days blurred into weeks, and Lily found herself watching Sam more closely. Not because he demanded her gaze, far from it, but because of how naturally he blended into the rhythm of the pack while still standing apart. When Kyle, the Alpha, entered a room, the air grew heavy. Everyone bent to him, their smiles forced, their laughter edged with fear. But when Sam arrived, people relaxed. Children ran to him without hesitation. Elders trusted him with their errands. His presence was calming, safe. Lily began to notice the little things, how he listened more than he spoke, how his smile was small but never false, how he treated even the lowest-ranked pack members with respect. Unlike Kale, who had showered her with grand promises only to shatter them, Sam offered no promises at all, only quiet acts that spoke louder than words. One evening, she caught herself staring at him as he carried baskets for the old healer. He moved with ease, strength hidden under humility. When he glanced up and caught her eyes, Lily quickly looked away, heat rushing to her cheeks. It unsettled her. She wasn't ready to trust, not after what had been done to her. Yet, a whisper stirred inside her heart. This feels different. This feels real. And for the first time since her heartbreak, Lily wondered if love could be gentle. Kale noticed the shift before Lily did. The way her gaze sometimes strayed towards Sam, the faint curve of her lips when the Omega offered a kind word or helped her carry a basket. It was nothing scandalous, nothing spoken aloud, yet Kale saw it, and it infuriated him. One evening, he cornered her outside the pack house, his hand clamped around her wrist, strong enough to bruise. "You belong to me," he hissed, his eyes burning with the fury of ownership rather than affection. Lily froze. "Kale, I never—" "Don't speak to him again," Kale cut her off. "Or any other man. You're mine, Lily. Mine to keep. Mine to discard when I choose. Do you understand?" His voice was sharp, his grip unrelenting. Lily's stomach twisted, not from love or longing, but from fear. The sweetness of his early promises had long vanished. What remained was a cage disguised as affection. When Kale released her, she staggered back, clutching her wrist. He gave her a cold smirk, satisfied with his control, and walked away as if he had simply reminded her of a fact, not shattered her spirit further. But Lily's heart whispered otherwise. This isn't love. This is chains. And as she lifted her eyes, she caught a glimpse of Sam watching from the shadows, not intruding, not interfering, but his steady gaze told her what Kale never could. Respect, not possession. The pack could feel it even before words were exchanged. Kale's eyes lingered too long on Sam. Sam's silence grew heavier whenever Kale entered a room. It was subtle at first, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Kale, proud and commanding, seemed to tower over every conversation, every gathering. Yet Sam, quiet and steady, carried a presence that unsettled the Alpha in ways no one dared mention aloud. At a hunting feast, Kale sat at the head of the long table, boasting of his latest kill. Laughter echoed, but Sam's calm voice broke through when he noticed Lily struggling to lift a heavy pot. "I'll help," Sam said simply, rising. He carried the pot with ease, setting it down before her with a soft smile. No fanfare, no demand for recognition. Lily's eyes shone with gratitude, a flicker Kale did not miss. The Alpha's jaw clenched. He raised his goblet and announced loudly, "Strength is for warriors, not servants. Some men are born to lead, others to carry burdens." The pack chuckled nervously. Some nodded, eager to please their leader, but others shifted uneasily, catching the sharp edge of Kale's words. Sam didn't respond with anger. He simply met Kale's gaze, unflinching, his calm more defiant than any roar. That quiet dignity gnawed at Kale's pride. In that moment, a silent battle began, not with claws or teeth, but with something far more dangerous, the war for Lily's heart and the pack's respect. Word spread quickly. An annual feast was to be held under the silver moon, a night where the pack gathered to celebrate unity, strength, and loyalty. But everyone knew it was more than food and song. It was a silent battleground for dominance. The Alpha always used the feast to remind the pack who ruled. Kyle loved these nights. He basked in the cheers, the admiration, the submission in every bowed head. Lily dreaded it. She knew she would be forced into the spotlight, paraded beside Kale as if she were his prized possession. Her stomach twisted with shame, but she had no choice. Sam, on the other hand, came quietly as always. He stayed at the edges, serving, helping, unnoticed by most, but never by Lily. Her eyes found him even in the crowded hall, drawn to his steady presence like a flame in the dark. When the feast began, Kale raised his goblet high. "Tonight, we honor strength, the bond that keeps this pack unbroken." His voice thundered, and the hall echoed with applause. But beneath the celebration, whispers stirred. Some still remembered how Sam had stood up for Lily in small, quiet ways. Some noticed how Kale's arrogance grew sharper each day. The feast was not just a celebration, it was a test. Who commanded true loyalty? Who inspired respect, not fear? Unseen by most, the battle lines were being drawn, and before the night ended, the fragile balance between Alpha, Omega, and Lily would be shaken. The fire crackled in the great hall as laughter echoed and cups clinked. The Alpha sat high at the table, glowing with pride and wine. Kale's arm draped possessively around Lily, but his touch felt more like chains than comfort. She sat stiffly, eyes lowered, trying to endure the stares. Whispers darted like arrows through the crowd, some mocking, some pitying. Kyle suddenly rose, goblet in hand. "Brothers, sisters," he shouted, drawing silence. "Tonight, let us toast not only to strength, but to conquest." His smirk deepened as he pulled Lily roughly to her feet. Gasps rippled across the room. This one thought she could resist an Alpha, he sneered, loud enough for all to hear. But tell me, did she not warm my bed like all the rest? Laughter exploded from some corners. Others looked away, uncomfortable. Lily's face burned crimson, her throat closing with humiliation. She wanted to disappear, to crumble into the stone beneath her feet. Her heart pounded, tears threatening to spill. He was turning her pain into entertainment. And then, before she could break, a quiet voice rose from the shadows. Enough. All eyes turned. Sam, the Omega who never raised his voice, stood at the edge of the hall. His gaze was steady, his presence calm but unshakable. She is not your trophy, he said evenly, every word cutting through the silence. She is not your shame to flaunt. She is more than your cruelty. The hall went utterly still. No one had ever dared challenge the Alpha in public. Kale's smirk faltered, his eyes narrowing with fury. An Omega dares interrupt me? He growled. But the damage was done. For the first time, Lily felt a flicker of hope. Someone had stood for her when she couldn't stand for herself. The silence after Sam's words felt heavier than stone. Every eye flicked between him and the Alpha, waiting for the explosion. Kale rose slowly, his face twisted with rage. You dare shame me in front of my pack? His voice thundered, shaking the hall. You are nothing, Omega. Stay in your place. But Sam didn't flinch. His calm gaze locked onto Kyle's. My place, he said softly, is wherever truth needs to be spoken. And tonight, truth is this. Lily deserves dignity, not ridicule. Gasps rippled through the pack. Never had an Omega spoken with such quiet certainty. His voice wasn't loud, yet it carried, cutting sharper than Kale's roar. Kale slammed his goblet down, wine splattering across the table. You think words make you strong? You think defiance makes you worthy? Sam took a step forward, not aggressive, but unshakable. Strength isn't in crushing others, it's in protecting them. You confuse fear with respect, Alpha. The crowd stirred, conflicted, whispering. Some eyes darted to Kale with doubt, others to Sam with dawning admiration. Lily, heart pounding, felt something shift inside her. Sam wasn't just kind. He wasn't just gentle. He was strong, stronger than Kale in a way the Alpha could never be. For the first time since her shame began, she didn't feel alone. The feast hall buzzed with unease. Whispers slipped between tables like sparks, each word feeding the fire of doubt that now burned against Kale. Omega speaks like a leader, someone muttered. He stood against the Alpha and did not tremble, another whispered. Is peace also strength? A young warrior asked aloud, bewildered. Kale's jaw tightened, his pride cracking under the weight of so many questioning eyes. He barked at the pack to eat, drink, and forget, but the damage was done. Lily sat frozen, torn between fear of Kale's fury and the rising warmth in her chest. She glanced at Sam. He wasn't basking in the attention, wasn't seeking glory. He simply sat back down, calm as still water, as if nothing had happened. That quiet dignity, it struck her. He had no need to dominate, no hunger for display. His strength was different, subtle, rooted, unshakable. Her heart tightened. How many times had I overlooked him, just like everyone else? Sam's eyes met hers across the room, gentle and steady. For the first time, Lily looked at him not with pity, but with awe. And deep within, a dangerous spark flickered. Admiration, maybe even something more. Lily couldn't stop replaying the moment in her mind. Sam standing against Kale with nothing but calm words and steady resolve. No snarls, no fists. Yet his presence had been stronger than any growl the Alpha had ever thundered. She caught herself watching him more often now. The way he carried himself, quiet, deliberate, respectful. The way he spoke to pack elders with patience, or how he helped the children without ever seeking thanks. Where Kale's touch had burned like possession, Sam's nearness felt like safety. Her chest ached, This was different. Dangerous. One afternoon, while carrying a basket of herbs, she stumbled on the uneven ground. Before she could fall, Sam's hand steadied her. Just a simple touch. Firm, gentle. Their eyes met, hers wide, his unreadable, though a softness lingered there. Heat rushed to her face. She pulled away quickly, murmuring thanks, but her heart was racing. Respect was no longer enough to name what she felt. Something warmer had taken root, something she feared Cale would destroy if he ever discovered. And yet, for the first time in a long time, Lily felt hope blooming where her shame had once lived. Cale found her alone near the riverbank, where she had gone to fetch water. His shadow fell over her before his voice did, sharp and dangerous. "So," he drawled, his tone laced with venom, "I see the way you look at him." Lily froze, clutching the water jug tighter. She didn't have to ask who he meant. Kyle stepped closer, his towering frame radiating dominance. "Don't play games with me, Lily. You think the Omega can protect you? That he's worthy of you?" His lips twisted into a cruel smile. "You belong to me. Don't forget who took you first." Her chest tightened, anger and shame battling inside her. But before she could respond, Cale leaned in, his voice dropping to a low, chilling growl. "If I ever catch you near him again, I'll make you regret it." He gripped her chin, forcing her to meet his burning eyes. For a heartbeat, Lily's breath caught, not in desire, but in fear. Then, just as suddenly, he released her, leaving her trembling as he walked away, his laughter echoing like a threat that clung to the air. Lily stood frozen, torn between fear of Cale's wrath and the undeniable warmth she felt whenever Sam was near. For the first time, she realized this wasn't just about her heart. It was about survival. The moon hung low, silver light spilling across the quiet clearing. Lily had slipped away, needing air after Cale's chilling warning. But she wasn't alone for long. Sam emerged from the shadows, carrying a basket of herbs. His steps were soft, his presence calm, so different from the storm that always followed the Alpha. "Lily," he said gently, stopping a few feet away, as if giving her space was the only way to respect her. "I saw Kyle earlier. He looked angry." Her throat tightened. "He warned me to stay away from you." Sam's jaw clenched, but his eyes softened. He set the basket down and took a slow breath. "He doesn't get to decide who you speak to, or who you care for." Lily's chest ached at the steadiness in his tone. "But he's the Alpha. If I disobey him?" She shook her head, fear wrapping around her ribs like chains. Sam stepped closer, his voice lowering into something tender yet firm. "Lily, you deserve more than threats and control. You deserve respect. You deserve someone who sees you, not as a possession, but as a person." Her eyes widened, caught in the quiet fire of his words. "Sam," he hesitated, then whispered, "I may not have rank or power, but if you let me, I would treat you the way you should have always been treated. With honor." Silence stretched between them, heavy but hopeful. For the first time, Lily's heart beat not out of fear, but because it longed for the warmth of his truth. Lily could not sleep that night. The Alpha's threat still rang in her ears, sharp as a blade. "Stay away from him, or you'll regret it." Her heart quaked at the memory of Kyle's burning eyes, his cruel smile. Yet, Sam's words echoed too, gentle but powerful. "You deserve respect. You deserve someone who sees you." She sat at the edge of her bed, staring at her trembling hands. Two paths stretched before her, one lined with fear, the other with hope. But both carried risk. If she obeyed Cale, she would remain his shadow, caged in his dominance, never free. But if she turned toward Sam, she risked Cale's wrath, and perhaps even her own safety within the pack. Her chest tightened as doubt surged. "What if Sam gets hurt because of me?" she whispered into the silence. Tears welled in her eyes. She had seen Kael's cruelty. He never forgave disobedience. But then she remembered the way Sam looked at her, not with hunger, not with pride, but with quiet reverence. That memory warmed her heart like a fragile flame against the cold of Kael's threat. Fear pulled her one way. Love pulled her the other. And Lily knew deep down she could not remain in the middle forever. For the first time in her life, she prayed, not for safety, but for courage to choose. The feast fires had long died, but the pack grounds were restless. The moon hung high, cold and silver, when the first howl split the night. It wasn't a familiar voice. It was wild, guttural, rogues. Shouts erupted as shadows poured from the trees. Wolves with scarred hides and glowing feral eyes stormed the clearing, the air filled with snarls, screams, and the stench of blood. Lily's heart pounded as she stumbled from her hut. Chaos surrounded her, mothers pulling children close, warriors shifting mid-leap, the clash of fangs on flesh. She searched desperately for safety, but the sight that froze her was Kael. The Alpha, proud and bold in the light of day, faltered under the rogue's relentless attack. His strikes were sloppy, his confidence cracking. Fear flitted in his eyes as he struggled against wolves who didn't bow to his dominance. Then she saw Sam. He didn't rush into battle blindly. Calm, focused, he moved with precision, shielding the weak, guiding the scattered, striking only when necessary. His presence was like an anchor in the storm, his strength quiet but undeniable. "Lily!" Sam's voice rang out above the chaos, his eyes locking with hers. "Stay behind me." Before she could respond, a rogue lunged for her. Time slowed, the gleam of its teeth, the thundering of her heart. But then, in a blur, Sam intercepted, his body colliding with the beast, driving it back with a snarl that carried power she had never heard from him before. For the first time, Lily saw what the pack had ignored for so long. Sam was not weak. He was a protector. And in that moment, she realized he wasn't just fighting for the pack. He was fighting for her. The night was a blur of firelight and fangs, but to Lily, it narrowed down to one moment, death leaping toward her. A rogue wolf lunged, its claws aimed for her throat. She gasped, frozen, her feet tangled in roots. But before the strike could land, a blur of motion intercepted. Sam. He collided with the beast midair, the sound of bone cracking beneath his force. His growl shook the clearing, primal and commanding, a sound so powerful it silenced even the rogues for a breath. "Stay behind me," he barked, chest rising and falling, his eyes glowing with a light she had never seen before. Silver fire, steady and fierce. The rogue scrambled back, but Sam was faster. He pinned it, teeth at its throat, and with one decisive motion, ended the fight. Blood stained his hands, but his gaze snapped back to Lily, softening instantly. "Are you hurt?" His voice was raw, protective. She shook her head, trembling. "No, because of you." Another rogue rushed from the shadows, but Sam was ready. He pulled Lily into his arms, twisting his body to shield her. His claws slashed in a clean arc, felling the attacker. Every move he made wasn't reckless like Kael's. It was precise, purposeful. Around them, pack members paused, eyes wide. The quiet Omega, the one they had mocked, was fighting like a warrior born of fire and moonlight. But for Lily, none of that mattered. In the chaos, she saw the truth, not just in his strength, but in the way he looked at her as though she was the only reason he fought at all. For the first time, she wasn't afraid. Because Sam, the Omega, was her shield in the storm. The battlefield was chaos, growls, screams, and the clash of claws against stone. But one sound silenced it all. Sam's roar. It wasn't the weak cry of an Omega they had dismissed for years. It was deep, thunderous, carrying authority that shook even the bravest rogues. Wolves froze mid-attack, their heads snapping toward him in disbelief. Sam moved like lightning, every strike measured, every blow devastating. Where Kale had fought with arrogance and wasted power, Sam fought with precision. One rogue after another fell before him, and still he stood unshaken, his silver eyes blazing under the moon. "Is that Sam?" one pack warrior whispered, stumbling back in shock. "The Omega?" another choked out, as if the word no longer fit. Lily clutched her chest, unable to look away. This wasn't just bravery, it was mastery. Every movement showed skill hidden beneath years of humility, strength restrained until the moment it was most needed. When a massive rogue charged Kyle, nearly toppling him, it was Sam who intercepted, dragging the beast away and breaking its spine with one decisive strike. Kyle's pride cracked as he staggered back, panting, watching the Omega do what he couldn't. The pack's eyes turned, away from their alpha, and toward the man they had ignored. For the first time, respect glimmered in their faces, and in that silence, a truth settled over them all, like a storm cloud ready to burst. Sam, the Omega, was no weakling. He was the strongest of them all. The battle raged on, but Kale's presence was no longer a shield for his pack. It was a liability. Instead of leading with strategy, Kale lunged recklessly at the largest rogues, eager to prove his dominance. He roared louder than he struck, his blows wide and careless. Warriors tried to follow his lead, but his chaos scattered them, leaving openings that rogues exploited mercilessly. "Fall back, protect the young," one elder cried, but Kale ignored the warning. His pride demanded the spotlight, even as his people bled around him. When a rogue pack surged toward the den where the children and mothers hid, Kale should have rallied the defense. Instead, he was too busy clawing at an enemy already crippled by Sam's earlier strikes. His arrogance blinded him. The pack watched in horror as Kyle stumbled, a gash across his chest from underestimating his foe. He staggered back, snarling, but there was fear in his eyes now. Not strength. Fear. Lily's heart clenched as she saw pups scrambling, nearly caught by a rogue Kale should have stopped. Sam was there in an instant, tearing through the threat with silent precision. He herded the young back to safety, his eyes never leaving the fight. Whispers rose among the warriors. "Our alpha. He's failing. He's reckless. He's putting us in danger." Kyle tried to rally, but his voice cracked as he shouted orders. No one listened. Their eyes no longer followed him. They were fixed on Sam, the Omega who moved with calm, unyielding strength, who shielded the weak when the Alpha did not. For the first time, the pack saw Kale not as their protector, but as their risk. And in that moment, Alpha Kale's power began to crumble, not by defeat at an enemy's hand, but by the truth revealed in his own. The battlefield stilled for a moment, as though even the rogues sensed the shift in power. Sam stood tall among the fallen, his chest heaving, his eyes glowing with a light that was not ordinary. It was not the meek gaze of an Omega, nor the fearful glimmer of the low-ranked. It was the fire of something ancient, something royal. Lily's breath caught. She had seen his strength in flashes before, but now it was undeniable. Sam radiated power that even Kale could not match. A rogue lunged from behind, fangs bared. Sam turned with swift precision, striking with a force that shattered bone. But when he raised his head, the mark of his lineage revealed itself. A crescent-shaped scar across his shoulder, glowing faintly, a birthmark only carried by the line of lost alphas. Gasps spread through the pack. "Impossible," one warrior whispered. "The bloodline was gone," another murmured. "No. Hidden." Sam never wanted the attention, never craved the throne. But the truth could no longer be buried. His strength was not chance, it was heritage. He was not weak, he was not lowly. He was the lost heir of a rival alpha line, hidden away after betrayal had nearly destroyed his family. Kale's face drained of color. His dominance cracked, not from claws or teeth, but from the undeniable truth standing before him. The pack's eyes, once chained to Kale's arrogance, now shifted toward Sam. Respect blossomed where mockery had once been. Sam met their gaze humbly. "I am not here to take what isn't mine, but I will always fight for what is right." The words cut deeper than any wound Kale had endured in battle. Strength, compassion, and humility. Sam embodied everything Kale pretended to be. And for the first time, the pack began to wonder if they had been following the wrong alpha all along. Kale could feel his grip on the pack slipping like sand through his fingers. The whispers that once praised his strength now doubted his worth. The eyes that once admired him now flickered towards Sam with growing loyalty. He couldn't let it happen. He wouldn't. That night, Kale cornered Lily near the healer's hut. His smile was practiced, but his eyes burned with something closer to madness than charm. "Lily," he said smoothly, though his voice quivered with strain, "you've been deceived. That so-called Omega isn't what he seems. He's dangerous, cunning. He's playing you to climb higher. But me?" His hand reached for hers, possessive, trembling. "I loved you first. I gave you everything." Lily recoiled, shaking her head. "No, Kale, you never gave me love. Only chains." His jaw tightened, but he forced a laugh. "Chains? You call my devotion chains? Don't you see? You're mine. Always have been. Always will be." He leaned closer, whispering words meant to sting. "Sam is a fraud. The pack will see through him. But if you stand beside me, I can forgive your mistake. I can still make you my Luna." Lily's heart pounded, anger replacing fear. His lies no longer wrapped around her like a spell. She could see them for what they were. Desperation, not love. She stepped back, her voice steady. "I don't want to be your Luna. Not now, not ever." For the first time, Kyle's mask cracked in public view. A few pack members had gathered nearby, curious at the hushed argument. They watched as their alpha, once untouchable, reached out in frantic grasping, only to be rejected. Kale's face darkened. He hissed through gritted teeth, low enough for only her to hear. "If you will not stand by me, I will destroy everything you care about, including him." But Lily didn't flinch. For the first time, she stood her ground. "Then you've already lost, Kale." The murmurs of the watching pack carried like wildfire. His lies had failed. His power was unraveling. And Sam, quiet, steady, unshaken, was there in the shadows, watching, ready to step into the light. The tension in the air was thick enough to suffocate. Kale's threats against Lily still echoed in the minds of the pack, but now all eyes shifted towards Sam. He had been silent long enough. Sam stepped forward, not with a warrior's roar, but with the calm authority of truth. His gaze swept over the pack before settling firmly on Kale. "You claim strength, Kale," Sam began, voice steady, resonant. "But strength without honor is nothing more than tyranny. An alpha who rules through fear is not a leader, he is a jailer. And you," he pointed not with anger, but with certainty, "have chained this pack long enough." Gasps rippled through the wolves gathered. Few had ever dared speak to Kale so boldly. Kale sneered, "You? Challenge me? You're an Omega? You don't have the right." Sam's shoulders straightened, and in his quiet defiance, he seemed taller than ever. "You're wrong. I have the right because I am part of this pack. Because leadership is not taken, it is earned. And I will not let you destroy Lily, or any of us, with your pride." Lily felt her heart squeeze. The words she had longed to hear, words of defense, of respect, of love without chains, were spoken for all to hear. Some pack members nodded, some even murmured their agreement. The tide was shifting. Kale laughed harshly, but there was no real confidence in it. So, you think your words make you stronger than me? Sam shook his head, calm as the morning sun. Not words, truth. And truth always outlives lies. The silence that followed was louder than any battle cry. For the first time, Kyle looked unsettled. Not by claws, but by the unshakable strength of someone who didn't need power to be powerful. And the pack saw it too. The pack stood frozen, caught between Kale's wounded pride and Sam's quiet defiance. But before either could speak again, Lily's voice broke through the silence. Fragile, trembling, yet unshakably brave. I have something to say. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. Her hands shook, but she didn't hide them. For too long she had carried the weight of silence, the chains of shame Kale had placed on her shoulders. But now, with Sam standing firm at her side, she found the courage to release the truth. Her voice wavered at first, but then grew steady. When Kale brought me to his quarters, I believed his promises. I believed he wanted me as his mate. He told me he loved me, that I was special, that I belonged to him. Her throat tightened, but she forced the words out. But it was all a lie. I was tricked into his bed. I thought it was love, but it was nothing more than conquest to him. The next morning, I heard him laughing about me, mocking me to others. Gasps broke out among the wolves. Shock, anger, disgust rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Kale's face darkened, but Lily lifted her chin, meeting his gaze for the first time without fear. You used me, Kale. You humiliated me, and I will not be silent anymore. Tears filled her eyes, but they were not tears of weakness. They were tears of release, of reclaiming the dignity that had been stolen. Sam stepped closer, his presence a quiet shield beside her, but he didn't speak. This was her moment. And the pack listened. For the first time, Lily was not the quiet, overlooked orphan girl. She was a voice of truth, a symbol of every wrong Kyle had buried beneath his arrogance. The crowd began to murmur, this time not against her, but against the alpha. The tide had shifted. The silence Kale had once commanded now belonged to her. The silence that followed Lily's confession was heavier than stone. Every wolf in the gathering felt the weight of her words, the truth echoing louder than Kale's authority ever could. For a moment, Kale tried to reclaim the room with his booming voice. Lies, he roared, stepping forward. She twists my kindness into betrayal. She wanted me. Every woman in this pack would. But his words fell flat. No admiration, no laughter, no loyalty answered him this time. Instead, all eyes turned to Lily. An elder wolf rose first, her silver hair glinting in the firelight. I heard the whispers, she said slowly. I wanted to believe they were just rumors. But now I see the truth. The alpha we trusted is not a leader, but a tyrant. Another wolf, younger, shouted from the crowd, We saw how you mocked her, Kyle. You dishonor us all when you dishonor one of our own. The murmurs grew louder, swelling into outrage. Wolves who once bowed their heads now raised them proudly, voices joining together. She speaks the truth. Lily was wronged. Kale is not fit to lead. Sam remained beside Lily, silent but unyielding, his calm presence radiating strength. He did not need to demand their loyalty. It was given freely because the pack could feel his integrity. Kale's chest heaved with rage. You dare question me? I am your alpha. But the declaration rang hollow. The power that once dripped from his words had evaporated. Authority did not live in his voice anymore. It had shifted, invisibly, to Lily and the Omega at her side. One by one, wolves lowered their heads, not to Kale, but to Lily. A quiet symbol of support, of belief, of justice. And in that moment, Kale understood. He was no longer their alpha in spirit, only in name. The pack had chosen. The once proud alpha stood alone in the circle of his pack, chest heaving, eyes burning with fury. Kyle's voice thundered one last time. "I am your alpha. You owe me your loyalty." But no one bowed. No one flinched. Instead, the elders stepped forward, their presence carrying the weight of centuries of law and tradition. The eldest among them, her voice steady as stone, declared, "An alpha is nothing without honor. Power taken through fear is weakness. You mocked love, you shamed your pack, and you betrayed your duty. By our laws, you are unworthy to lead." The pack murmured in agreement, the sound like a rising tide drowning Kale's authority. Two of the strongest wolves approached, not as loyal guards, but as enforcers of justice. They seized Kale by the arms and forced him to his knees before all. His growls and snarls shook the air, but they no longer inspired fear. "Look at me," he roared, glaring at Lily and Sam. "You think this Omega can lead you? He is nothing." But Sam didn't answer. He simply stood with quiet dignity, the very contrast that revealed Kale's arrogance. The pack saw it too, and their silence condemned Kale more powerfully than words. The elder raised her hand, signaling the final decree. "Kale, you are alpha no more. Stripped of rank, stripped of respect. You will leave this place in exile, for the pack has chosen honor over pride." Gasps and murmurs filled the air. Some wolves looked away, unable to meet the sight of their fallen alpha. Others stared, satisfied to see justice done. Kale's face twisted with rage and disbelief as the mark of alpha was symbolically torn from him. A leather band ripped from his arm, his name removed from the chants of the pack. For the first time, Kale looked small. Not a leader, not a god, but a man broken by his own lies. And as he was dragged away, all eyes turned not to him, but to Lily and the Omega, who stood at her side. The night after Kale's exile, the pack lands were quiet. The chaos, the anger, the shame, all of it had settled like dust after a storm. What remained was stillness, and in that stillness, a chance to breathe again. Lily sat beneath the silver glow of the moon, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. For so long she had believed love was meant to be dazzling, overwhelming, something you had to chase. But here, with Sam beside her, she felt something different, something real. He didn't try to fill the silence. He simply sat, shoulders relaxed, gaze gentle, as though he had been waiting all this time for her to find her voice. "Sam," Lily whispered, her throat tight with emotion. "I was so foolish. I thought I needed to be chosen by someone powerful to matter." Sam's eyes softened, and he shook his head. "You don't need to be chosen to matter, Lily. You matter because of who you are. The Alpha couldn't see it, but I did. I always did." Her eyes brimmed with tears, not of shame, but of release. For the first time since her heart had been broken, she felt safe enough to cry. Sam reached out slowly, as if asking permission, and when she nodded, he took her hand in his. His warmth seeped into her skin, steady and sure, and in that touch, she felt a promise far stronger than any vow of status or rank. The bond forming between them was not built on fear or possession, but on truth. On the quiet strength of being seen, understood, and loved as she was. As the moonlight bathed them in silver, Lily leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder. For the first time in a long time, she felt whole. Around them, the pack had begun to notice the change. No one mocked, no one whispered. Instead, there was respect, not demanded, but earned. The sight of Lily and Sam together was not scandal, but healing. Proof that even in the ruins of betrayal, something beautiful could grow. And in that moment, their love bloomed openly, fragile yet unbreakable, gentle yet powerful. The pack had gathered again, this time not for judgment or conflict, but for renewal. The air was calm, the fires glowing softly as wolves sat in silence, watching. For the first time in memory, there was no alpha standing over them, demanding loyalty. Instead, all eyes turned toward Lily and Sam. Sam stood before her, not with arrogance or command, but with humility. His posture was steady, his hands open at his sides, showing no force, no claim, only respect. "Lily," he began, his voice carrying across the gathering, "I have no right to demand your bond. A mate bond is not chains, nor a prize to be won. It is a choice. Yours." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Never had an Alpha or Omega spoken so. Mate bonds were often claimed, marked, sealed without question. But here, Sam was turning the tradition on its head. Lily's breath caught. Her heart hammered in her chest, not from fear but from the weight of the moment. She looked at him, this quiet wolf who had shielded her when the world turned cruel, who had seen her not as a conquest, but as a person. Sam stepped closer, kneeling so that their eyes met as equals. His voice softened. "I will offer you my bond, but I will not take it unless your heart calls for it. I want your yes, not because of who I am, but because of what we can be together." The crowd hushed. For the first time, Lily felt truly powerful, not because someone gave her status, but because her choice mattered. Tears welled in her eyes as she reached out and touched his cheek. "Sam, I choose you. Not because you're strong, not because the pack approves, but because you loved me when I was broken. You saw me when I couldn't see myself." At her words, a quiet cheer rippled through the wolves, some bowing their heads in respect, others weeping quietly. Sam leaned forward, his lips brushing her forehead, sealing his vow. A glow of warmth surged between them, not the harsh fire of lust and power, but the steady flame of trust and devotion. The mate bond was offered, and for the first time, it was accepted freely. The night carried a new silence. Where once the pack trembled under Kale's command, now there was only relief. His power, once unshakable, was gone. The elders stood before him, their judgment final. "You are no longer Alpha. You used strength to dominate, not protect. You broke trust, and trust is the true bond of leadership. You are hereby exiled from this pack." Kale's eyes burned with rage, but there was no army left to defend him, no voice left to cheer him. His downfall was not by brute force, but by truth revealed. Shoulders stiff, he turned and walked into the shadows. A king stripped of his crown, a wolf without a home. The pack turned now to Sam. Some expected him to step forward, to claim the Alpha's place, to stand tall as their leader. But Sam shook his head. "I never sought a throne," he said softly. "Strength is not in titles. It is in how we love, protect, and honor one another. I will serve as I always have, not above you, but among you." Murmurs spread. Some were surprised, others deeply moved. For the first time, they saw humility as greater than dominance. Lily stepped to his side. Her heart no longer raced with fear of being claimed, controlled, or discarded. She had found her answer: love without chains, respect without fear. Taking his hand, she smiled. "Then let us walk this path together, not as Alpha and mate, but as equals." The crowd erupted in approval, howls rising to the moonlit sky. The pack was not the same anymore. They had seen what true strength looked like, and it had changed them forever. As the firelight danced in their eyes, Lily leaned into Sam's embrace. For the first time in her life, she felt free, not because of power, but because of love. A love she chose. And that choice made all the difference.